Hello, guys, and welcome to Indiana Sports Connection, your source for all things sports in the state of Indiana. Specifically on this channel, we are going to be talking about the Indianapolis Colts and the Indiana Hoosiers basketball team primarily, but we will talk about the football team as well as touch on anything from around the state of Indiana, including high school sports, high school athletes, Notre Dame, Butler, Purdue. We'll touch on all of that, some Indiana Pacers, but primarily this is going to be a Colts and Indiana Hoosiers basketball channel, and I will do live reactions. I am just a fan. I am not the media. I am not anybody. I am just a fan of the Colts. I have been my entire life. My name is Aaron. Welcome to the show. I am the host of the show. So let's get into it right now and start talking about the main things on the docket today to talk about is Jonathan Taylor and Anthony Richardson. So Jonathan Taylor, it's highly known. Jonathan Taylor wants out of Indianapolis, or he wants more money. Something I have not heard anybody talk about at all is whether or not he is getting paid. Online, I read on several different sources that if you are put on the PUP list, you will be paid your entire salary unless you are in the final year of your contract. Jonathan Taylor is in the final year of his contract. This, to me, is a huge tipping point on whether or not he will come back to the Colts and play after this first 4 weeks. He is due. And if you don't know this, NFL players get paid on an 18-week schedule. So Jonathan Taylor at $4.3 million, he will be making $238,000 a week. The owners choose what day of the week. I mean, some owners choose to pay on Tuesdays, some choose to pay on Fridays. They can really get paid any day of the week, but they get paid on an 18-week schedule. You do get paid some money for being in training camp. Veterans get paid like around $3,200 for being in training camp. Rookies and people that have not been in the league, I believe it's 5 years you have to be in the league, but other people get paid for training camp like around $1,700. So they do make some money when they come into training camp, but primarily they make their base salary on an 18-week schedule. This would have a huge impact on myself if I'm just putting myself as a person in their shoes. Like, am I getting paid $238,000 a week for 4 weeks to start the season because Jonathan Taylor is going to be on the PUP list for the first 4 weeks of the Indianapolis Colts season? That is close to $1 million. Now, they do take taxes out of that, but that is a lot of money. If he is sacrificing that money and the team is not paying him, I do see a pathway where, and this may benefit the Colts in the end, and they may think this as well, is like if you're not paying him through the first 4 weeks and say he holds out for another 4 weeks and then he starts to really feel the pinch of the money not coming in and then he comes back onto the team, you do have a fresher Jonathan Taylor going into the back half of this season. And also at that time you can assess, are we a playoff team? Are we not a playoff team? Because we'll be 8 weeks into the season at that point. I think this is going to have a huge impact. Whether or not he's going to come back or not is whether or not they are actually paying him. I cannot find anywhere that will say, is he getting paid or is he not getting paid? Chris Ballard had the press conference, and I just watched that yesterday, and everybody is overreacting to the question. Zach Kiefer asked him about Jonathan Taylor, and he responded like, well, we only won 4 games last year. And everybody's insinuating like, well, the Colts sucked last year. That wasn't Jonathan Taylor's fault, blah, blah, blah. It wasn't his fault, but was it kind of? I mean, the offensive line had troubles, but he did not have a great year, and he also got injured. I mean, if you look at what Jonathan Taylor's done through 3 seasons, year 1, kind of looked like a bust. He looked year one a little bit like Trent Richardson at times. I mean, I know I don't even want to bring up the horrors that were Trent Richardson. We traded a number one pick for a running back. I mean, this is where the Colts may, with ownership, learn their lesson a long time ago. We didn't win a Super Bowl with Marshall Faulk, probably the most versatile running back that ever played at Indianapolis. Well, we didn't win a Super Bowl with Eric Dickerson either. I mean, he was really one hell of a great running back. I loved that guy. And back when I first became a fan, like in the late 80s, he was the only guy that you knew even on the team. They were the dolts back then before Manning came into town. Edgerrin James, didn't win a Super Bowl with Edgerrin James. We won the Super Bowl the next year after he got traded, when we kind of had more of a yin and yang system, with Dominic Rhodes being more of the power back and Joseph Adai being more of the finesse back, catching balls out of the backfield. That right there, them winning the Super Bowl with that combination, all of that is what has like diluted this running back market. I do see where it's better to have kind of a yin and yang system like that. Like you have, it's a lot easier to find like one power back and one more catching balls out of the backfield back. And if one of those guys goes down, it's a lot easier to find one of these guys or one of these guys than having all of your eggs in one basket. Not to be too cliche. So a lot of things are going against Jonathan Taylor in this instance. The other part of this that I would like to talk about is that he felt like he had leverage, but did he really ever have any leverage? I'm going to tell you about a situation that happened like years ago with a boss of mine that I don't want to name any names if you're my boss and you're out there watching this right now. So I knew I had talked to other places of employment, so I knew I had a backup in mind that I would go to and make more money. When the boss cut down on part of the scale, and I work in sales, I've worked in sales for a long time, but when they were going to cut down on the amount that we were going to make, the leverage I had was I knew this place over here that I could do sales, and they told me, you know, I had been through interviews and things like that, and I knew what their scale was, that I would make about $20,000 more a year by going there. When the boss did that, and then I pulled that card, they immediately changed. Well, they negotiated with me. They didn't immediately change the scale, but I negotiated with them to where they weren't going to cut it down as much as what they said that they were going to. But I knew by having that in my back pocket, it was more or less the leverage. Now, it's not just Jim Irsay who's not paying Jonathan Taylor. It's 31 other teams as well. So many people on ESPN and these different shows are saying, you know, Jim Irsay is the problem. Well, no other owner is paying Jonathan Taylor either. So, I mean, you can say it's him, but it's really every owner is not paying top dollar for running backs. Now, there are some guys, and this is who Jonathan Taylor is pointing at, like Christian McCaffrey, Alvin Kamara. These guys catch the ball out of the backfield and play wide receiver a lot more than Jonathan Taylor can. And it's maybe not part of a system that the Colts are going to run. I really don't know Shane Steichen if he's going to run like as much the like bubble screens and screen plays, or like flank running backs out to play wide receiver. Yeah, with San Francisco, it was like Kyle Shanahan knew that putting this running back in these types of situations, Christian McCaffrey, that was going to make his team a lot more successful and make it a lot easier. But one thing there, they don't have a top level quarterback, so they have the money to spend on players like that. So all of this, I wish all the best to Jonathan Taylor. Everybody wishes that he would play on the Colts. Chris Ballard did say that, relationships can always be repaired, and I do believe that's true. And maybe after 4 weeks, if he's not getting paid, or even if he is getting paid, but if he's not getting paid for 4 weeks and then 8 weeks and he's on the PUP list because he's in the last year of his contract, if he's not getting paid, I can see that pushing somebody to their breaking point of like, okay, like, look, if you don't play this entire season, you are not going to get paid next year. You kind of have to start thinking for yourself, like, I have to do this, this, and this to get a future contract, even if it's going to be $10 million a year or whatever that is going to be for Jonathan Taylor for a different team. I wish him all the best, but the Colts, it is a business, and the Colts have to do what they have to do, and paying a running back a bunch of money, especially one who we don't even know if he's healthy right now or if he's injured right now. He really drew a line in the sand when the Colts were trying to cover for him, and they said that he had a back injury, and he immediately 1 hour later went on Instagram and said, I don't have a back injury. They're just lying. And when you do that to your boss, they are going to get very pissed off. So just something to keep in mind, I guess, going forward is that, maybe someday running backs will come back and they'll make big time money in the NFL. But for right now, I mean, you're making $4 million. You're probably, as a running back, you're going to make about $10 million a year. And just enjoy that, because there are very few places where you can go out and get a job just making even $238,000 a week for 18 weeks. Not a bad gig. All right, moving on now. Let's move on to Anthony Richardson. I love this guy, like everything we've seen so far. And I know we've just seen him in a half of preseason football. And Kurt Herbstreit and Al Michaels, they were absolutely gushing over this guy. And I think everybody is, just because of his stats, and it are just so unbelievable how athletic this guy is. Comparing him to Andrew Luck, this guy, 42-inch vertical leap. Andrew Luck, 36-inch vertical leap. Andrew Luck, 4.6 40. This guy, 4.4 40. He's a little bit faster. He can jump a little bit higher. Also, weight, Andrew Luck was 235. This guy's 244 coming into the season. I've seen some estimates putting him higher, but I mean, so 10 pounds heavier. When you look historically back at, and don't get yourself thinking that the Colts are going to win the Super Bowl this year, but looking back at running quarterbacks, they have their most productive years in the beginning of playing in the NFL. Michael Vick, lightning rod as soon as he came into the league. Cam Newton had a lot of success early. Even Andrew Luck, a lot of his success came from early on. He ran the ball a lot. I mean, just seeing a guy that can take off and get like 15 yards when everybody's in man coverage and he can just angle himself out of bounds. And that is critical. Like, so far from watching him, I think he really does have a great feel for escaping pressure, and that is a big part of it. I felt like Andrew Luck, he did look down the field for long periods of time and would just get blindsided by guys, and I always kind of felt with him like, run out of there, run out of there. I don't totally blame the offensive line for what happened with Andrew Luck. A lot of that was his own doing and his own just style of play, kind of like came to be the end of him. I'm not trying to compare him to Anthony Richardson so far, but I am, because they're both big and big running quarterbacks. So even Donovan McNabb, early on in his career, when he lost the step, when he had some injuries that like hamstring injuries and things like that, and he just lost his step, he was done in the NFL so quickly. He looked so awful in Minnesota. But he had some very productive years playing with some really great teams under Andy Reid. And I can see that happening. Now, I'm predicting that the Colts are going to win like 6 games around, I was going to say 4 to 6. But I can definitely see a window where in the division that they're in, as weak as it is, you can see that the AFC East with Miami, Buffalo, and the Jets are all going to beat each other up. And even the Patriots in that division are not an easy out. And then the AFC West with Kansas City, San Diego Chargers, Denver Broncos should be a better team this year. And the Oakland Raiders, those teams are going to cannibalize each other either. So I do see a way with those two divisions being so strong that and then you got the AFC North with the Bengals. Baltimore is going to be better this year. They have Odell Beckham Jr. and Lamar Jackson got his contract, so he's coming back. So the Colts are in the weakest division. They're in the one division that I don't think like all the teams in the Colts division are going to beat up on each other. They play Jacksonville week 1. In the future, I'm going to make the predictions on Jacksonville coming up this next week. But definitely, I definitely see how the Colts could have a path to the playoffs because you got to beat Tennessee, and Tennessee might be kind of in a in-between year where maybe Ryan Tannehill might be on his way out. But sorry, get some coffee here. But I see a way that the Colts could make the playoffs. You have 7 teams. You have 3 wild card teams now. And you have the other divisions are all going to be beaten up on themselves. So it could very well be that just making the wild card, if you got 7 losses or 8 losses, they could perhaps beat some teams that, and what else helps the Colts is they have a very weak schedule as well. And we'll go through that as time goes on. But Anthony Richardson being a running quarterback and just looking at the history of running quarterbacks, they have a lot of success early in their career, more so than later on. Now, down the road, hopefully he becomes more of a pocket passer and can gain accuracy and things like that. But for now, I mean, this guy's going to have to take off and run the ball when he sees pressure coming in his face, or if teams try to blitz him, a running quarterback like this can escape that blitz and really make teams pay by getting out into the open field when they blitz him and they don't actually tackle him. So there will be a lot of spies on this guy. There will be a lot of middle linebackers. But when your spy is not as fast as the guy playing quarterback, you're going to have big time problems. So thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Indiana Sports Connection, a brand new show on YouTube.com. So thank you for joining me. And we are, as always, brought to you by Reynolds Wrap. If you love to cook, you love to grill outside, choose Reynolds Wrap. I use it all the time. It makes for easy cleanup. Just wrap everything, wrap your grill in Reynolds Wrap. Makes your grill stay cleaner. You can actually wrap the food in the Reynolds Wrap. You can use it as covers for things. I use it for everything. And Reynolds Wrap is made in the United States. As always, one of the oldest American companies. So when choosing an aluminum foil, choose Reynolds Wrap and save time on your cleanup. Thank you so much for joining me today on this episode of Indiana Sports Connection. And until next time, stay classy out there, Colts fans.